grab one, you can. Otherwise, our moderator is Nuno. I'm going to let you take it away. If you can't get the camera to work, it's fine. He's going to talk to about Web3 gaming, ask some questions, introduce the others, and we'll let you guys take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you so much both to Breakman and to Waffles Kitty for the invite and for the amazing work they did putting together NFTOPIA for. Definitely a pleasure to be a part of it, and great to see that the metaverse is strong still in the Wax community and all of the others, Hive as well, which we've just learned so much about. Yeah, I have the absolute pleasure of being joined today by a panel of amazing creators, Web3 gaming creators, and I kind of want to pick their ear a little bit about what they feel about the space at the moment, where do they feel that we're going from here, and also obviously give them a bit of an opportunity to share what they're working on and what might be coming next for their projects. So without further ado, I'm going to give them all the opportunity to introduce themselves. We have today with us Aggroed or Aggie, the CEO at Splinterlands, co-founder at Splinterlands actually, and the CEO at Invenium. We also have with us Michael Rubinelli, the Chief Games Officer at Tyranno Studios. And finally, I think we have with us Waginston as well, which is a decentralization specialist at Blockchain Gaming.
Where's Waginston? Can you get on the mic? Are you
I've seen him. I've seen him around.
He's a green bot. I'm standing next to him.
Oh,
he's right here.
Oh, he's right here. Are you speaking? Do you have your mic on? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I hear you. How's it going?
You hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes.
Oh,
all right. You guys are using the cam that's in like the one by your avatar, and that's fine. I'm gonna use that to look at you too around different perspectives. I think it's pretty cool too. All right, Nuno, carry forward.
All right. Guess we can start with you then, Waginston. If you could introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your project to everyone in the audience.
Well, I am from Blockchain Gaming Technologies. We have a website, blockchaingaming.com, but it needs a lot of work. We've been more active with our hedge fund, which does pretty well, and includes games on Wax and especially Hive. Yeah, we're really excited for it, for our accelerator program, and to promote and support games in the Hive and wider blockchain gaming ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next, we can go on to Aggroed. If you could give us just a little introduction and yeah, a little bit about your role in Invenium as well.
Sure. So I'm Aggroed. I was founder of Splinterlands, built back in 2018. To date, it's it's played something like 3.5 billion games. We've done more than 2 billion on-chain transactions, and there's 140,000 people in Discord. Maybe it's up to 200,000, somewhere in that range. 70,000 people on Twitter. The Telegram is 10 to 20,000. So we built a rather large community. There's millions of registered accounts that are part of this game, and it's pretty big, and it's been here for a while. We wanted to go build in the additional games, so I started working on that back in 2021. Our first game was called, or the first new game outside of Splinterlands was called Goals, and it was in partnership with the MLSPA. On a platform that we built called Genesis League Sports. And more recently, we've launched something called Arcade Colony. And Arcade Colony is a platform for video games that aren't necessarily sports related. So now we kind of run 3 different game silos: anything related to Splinterlands, anything related to sports, and anything related to just arcade games in general. And we use a tech stack called Invenium, And that technology stack is like a Swiss Army knife for crypto. And we can take any Web 2 game and turn it into a Web 3 game. So, like if you have a game in Unity and you've built a community, and maybe it might even be a couple years old and like trailing off or whatever it is, if you've built the game and it used modern Web 2 game engines, we can now convert that to a Web 3 tool and do that, unless it's gigantic. We're pretty good at doing that in about a month or less. So that to me is really exciting because we want to bring people to the blockchain, and Web 2 games are where you find crap tons of people, and we can convert them to crypto degenerates, in relatively short amounts of time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And finally, we go on to Michael Rubinelli from Tyranno Studios. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your role within Tyranno Studios and the products that hold within.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. I'm Michael Rubinelli. I'm the Chief Gaming Officer at Tyranno Studios, which is kind of an owned subsidiary of the Wax Foundation. And so a lot of people don't understand the direct link that we have with Wax. We are Wax users, we are Wax lovers, and we are compensated by by Wax. So it's great to be here. Would love to talk about kind of all the great things going on in Web3 gaming. In particular, as it relates to us, we built a game, back early 2022 called Blockchain Brawlers, and we've had a tremendous amount of success with that game. Of late, we've rebranded it to just Brawlers. Again, I think a lot of the kind of the topics we're going to cover today is how do we lead sort of mass adoption, how do we convert Web 2 players to become Web 3 players? And I've got a lot of, kind of interesting thoughts on that in the 3 years I've been in this space. But one of the things we did is we rebranded Brawlers to be just Brawlers. We launched on the Epic Game Store. We did a promotion with Amazon Prime Gaming. We've done a lot of things to try to bring in, regular gamers into the space, because I think it's kind of the biggest thing that is going to block anybody's growth here. And again, I know we'll talk a lot about that. We also recently launched earlier this year a game called Music Mogul that's used generative AI to generate music tracks that players can enter into weekly and daily streaming competitions to earn our fungible token to plow back into their infrastructure. And last but not least, we have a game coming out at some point this summer, which we're really excited about, called Spin Tycoon, which is our first fairly aggressive multi-chain product. We've got a different economic engine. We've got a different kind of user acquisition campaign strategy going on. And we're trying to do a lot of things different from a core loop and a progression standpoint that is much more interesting, I think, to the players and to the developers. Because again, not to get ahead of ourselves too much, but I think one of the challenges that the Web3 world is going to have is, what is that economic divide between where can the developer or publisher, charge a player versus where can the player sell things on their own? And that's a real interesting and hard to solve kind of tension point, I think, that we all struggle with on a regular basis.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the intro and the insight. Regulation is definitely a minefield within this space, and not one which we're going to touch upon as much today. But I'm sure that, you could all share amazing insights on that. And sadly, it's still a lot to be seen where the truth actually falls, let's say, and how do things actually work in different regulatory landscapes. So, I wanted to thank you all again for taking the time to be here with us today, and I'm going to jump straight into it. And the first question is a bit the narrative that's dominating CryptoX, let's say, which is, are we back yet? Aren't we back yet? And I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on how it has been to survive this cycle of less attention within the crypto space in general, and obviously within the gaming Web3 ecosystem, and as well if you feel that we are in an uptrend now and that we are coming out of that dip, so to speak. So I guess we can start with Michael. What is your opinion on this?
Yeah, it's weird. I've always thought one of the challenges is that as a movement, we got conflated with the price of Bitcoin or the price of Ethereum. Like somebody said in the chat, we never went anywhere. I agree. We never went anywhere as a movement, like gaming. Like, asset ownership and NFT utility is very much, linked in terms of philosophically, for some reason, is linked to the price of Bitcoin, which it shouldn't be. The reality of the situation is players want to own their stuff and they want to use it and they want to have scarcity and utility. They want to have GameFi, and that shouldn't be tied to the price of Bitcoin. But because Bitcoin took such a hammering with this crypto winter, I think a lot of people thought like, oh, Web3 gaming is dead. Like, it couldn't be further from the truth. Web3 gaming, like, 2018, if you look at Splinterlands, which was incredibly successful, you look at, Axie, which I think was actually a fairly dangerous thing, but a good set of learnings for all of us. Like, it was in its infancy. It's still very much an emerging technology. It's an emerging set of trends. And I think the growth that has taken place over the last 2 years in Web3 gaming has been absolutely incredible. And I can't wait to see, what comes out of, all these AAA studios and AA studios that kind of came into the movement, 2-3 years ago. And you see the things that they are bringing to market kind of, mid-year, end of year, beginning of next year. Oh. It's really going to open a lot of people's eyes in terms of what is possible. It's going to really rebrand or get people to recalibrate what their thoughts are when it comes to what a Web3 game means. And so, are we back? We never left. We just were growing, right? We were in the lab. We were doing the heavy lifting and doing the hard work. And like I said, a lot of those things are going to, a lot of those chickens are going to come home to roost, so to speak, in the next, call it 6 to 12 months. I can't wait to see what comes out.
Amazing answer. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Aggie, can we get your take on this? Do you feel that we never left, or are we coming back now?
I have a more grim perspective. I would say if you are a buyer, this is a phenomenal freaking time. And if you are a seller, this is a horrible freaking time. And, basically the 3-year drought of altcoins has been freaking terrible for the industry and crypto games in particular. And, I hear a lot of people say like, hey, look, if your game is fun, then people should be buying it no matter what. But, just take that to like a car. Forget about a game for a second. If you knew that a car was going to go drop in price by large amounts of money each week for the next, 20 weeks or however many you might expect, you might actually love driving that expensive, wonderful car, but still pass on the opportunity until it comes down to a cheaper price. So, my take is that the bear market, and this will happen in all of these cycles, that the bull market will create gigantic, massive upswings and bubbles in asset prices. The bear market will devastate companies, and it's important to operate conservatively through those cycles of like not falling for the mania and not getting financially crushed during the depression era. And it is a challenge to do both of those. So that's leading up to now. And now I'd say, I don't have a crystal ball, but I look at things and I think Bitcoin's about to go on a tear, and it'll finally get us back to like alt season. I've been waiting years for this, and I think it'll continue to come around. But I'm not a financial advisor, and but I think that the best days are like just now starting for altcoins. So my go-to will be when we start seeing Bitcoin take all new all-time highs again and sort of ripping through the $73,000 level. I think we're going to be in freaking amazing territory again. And to put that in perspective, like the best year of business for Splinterlands was something like $28 million. And, slower years have been closer to like 2 or 3. So, this is not an inconsequential drop to revenue or to just the way that the business operates. It is absolutely feast or famine. And, it's really tough to operate through cycles that are that big for a business. So I think the best days are ahead, and I think that they're imminent. But again, not financial advice. Don't bet your house on that. But if I had to guess, that's what I think is happening. Like in this month, we'll see nice rips. The last dip, I was looking at that being like, is this a dip it and rip it moment, or is this going to be like the next leg of a collapse? and it looks to me like it's a dip it and rip it. And if that's the case, then alts and everything else in the ecosystem is going to finally be in a nice spot after like a 3-year drought.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the insight. And yeah, guys, nothing of what is said here should be taken as financial advice. Make sure to do your own research. And again, don't invest money you aren't willing to lose. You've heard all of this before. But yeah, thank you so much for the amazing insight, Aggro. And it's amazing to see, even just in terms of the attention, that yeah, there's definitely a lot more interest around crypto, around Web3 gaming. And yeah, it can only be a good thing for everyone building and working in the space. So yeah, it's awesome to see. And finally, Waginston, what is your take on this? Do you feel that we're back? Have we never left? Or yeah, which is it?
Well, we did leave at some point. I mean, price was not doing so well, so I wouldn't argue with that. As a hedge fund manager, specifically of blockchain gaming, I have to follow such trends, and it was a rough 3 years, man. But I'm just happy our hedge fund survived. A lot of hedge funds during that time proved themselves to be not solvent, and a lot of funds and coins and stable coins obviously went bust during that time. But we did what we could to maintain solvency, and lately, numbers have been going up. That's pretty swell. In general, though, I'd say um, the biggest gainers have been, at least from what I've seen, and some gaming tokens have gone up, but some of the biggest gainers have been those that intersect with artificial intelligence, which seemed to be the lead buzzword up until now in the recent increase that's been capturing a lot of the mania when it comes to altcoins. But gaming's done, there's been some trickle for gaming too. Uh, it's gotten some attention, and that's pretty awesome. Um, how back we are, I mean, there's complications. Gensler is going to be a dick again, obviously. And this time it's like, I don't know if you said we're not talking too much about regulations. So instead
I mean,
of.
you can if you want. Feel free.
Okay, well, the reason I think Gensler is a dick is because of what he's doing to Ethereum. What you got to realize is that if he comes harder on Ethereum than he did on Bitcoin, it's going to scare some investors from altcoins a little bit. And for some reason, he seems to be more inclined to call altcoins securities. And I just think it's ridiculous for the reason that his reasoning is based on the way proof of stake works. And that's basically, he's incentivizing destruction of the environment. So the best way to pass Gary Gensler's Howey test is to use mining like Bitcoin does. If you use proof of stake or some other system besides proof of work, he's going to call you a security. And that's stupid and bad for altcoins. But, ultimately, I'm not sure he'll win. I think ultimately he's going to have some pushback on that. And in the long term, I'm quite bullish. And, like these bull runs, they can morph. Just because the bull run starts focused on AI doesn't mean it stays focused on AI throughout its duration. And obviously, that's my hope as manager of a gaming-focused hedge fund. And yeah, I'm quite positive about the days to come. Maybe when it becomes gaming / Web3's turn will be when some more developments come out, because in gaming, the big games take years to develop. And the problem that we've incurred that's given us hate from the mainstream game industry is a lack of attention to the gaming component of blockchain gaming. where it's all about business model first, game second, play to earn instead of play and earn. And but the big developers, in gaming, they call them like AAA games. Those guys, and they make games that are more like art, games as art forms, more serious titles. Because those take years to develop, they haven't hit the market yet. But I think once this kind of wave of higher quality games hits the market, it's going to force some attention back onto gaming / Web3 and stuff.
Awesome. Great take. And yeah, like picking out of what you guys were saying a little bit, I'm going to merge the next two questions that I had for you, which are: do you feel that there were any learnings, or do you feel that we've learned what we needed to learn as a space, in this case, Web3, Web3 gaming? And do you feel as well that now we're poised to take kind of the main stage in terms of narrative on this upcoming cycle? And I guess we can start with Aggroed for this one.
I'm still. Can you shorten the question? What is the question here?
Sure. So do you feel like Web3 gaming learned what it needed to learn from this past cycle? And do you feel like the learnings were enough for us to take part of the main stage in the upcoming cycle when it comes to the narrative of what's hyped?
Generally, no. So I think back to NBA Top Shots was supposed to go give a presentation at NFT NYC like 4 years ago, and they couldn't actually start it at that point. And instead, the VC behind the project got up there and went on a 30-minute rant. His name is David Venrock, and he just freaking like went after everything that's wrong, and basically was referencing Ethereum and was basically saying, look, there's not a fast onboarding experience. Look, it's too hard to go do this. Transaction volume isn't enough. And just rattling off problems in the industry. For the most part, I think a lot of those problems remain unsolved. Doing transactions in crypto is really hard. It makes for very clunky in-game experiences. And I think it's been like a pretty crappy experience for most people coming into games. With Invenium, I think we've created a pathway that I think is better and might even be good. We're trying to replicate as much as the Web2 experience as humanly possible. But we still have like a couple of weeks before the first unit. Like our team is really focused on doing turning Unity-based games into Web3 projects. We call it hybrid gaming. You're going to do both your Web2 game and your Web3 game at the same time. And that's kind of like our approach to address it. And I guess I would say, if we're sitting here trying to address it, that we as a community haven't really learned. And then, some of that question is technological, which I just answered, and some of that is really financial. And there, I'd say we haven't learned any lessons either. The community of degenerates is going to continue to play out the exact same emotional cycles that we have for years of euphoria at the top and despondency at the bottom. And I don't see anything in my community, in the crypto Twitter world, in the various interactions that I've had in the last 6 years that make me think that human emotional cycles are any different or will change ever. And no, we are bound to these mega hype cycles, mega devastation lows. Maybe 10 or 20 years from now, it might be mildly less dramatic. But for the meantime, no lessons have been learned, no problems have been solved, and there's still a lot of work left to do, which hopefully in the next bull cycle there will be absolute dumpsters full of cash to help find the next level of solution.
Awesome. Thank you for your take. Yeah, and from here we can go on to Michael. Do you share this grim outlook of aggro, or do you feel that we are now poised to to take the main stage when it comes to narrative in terms of the upcoming cycle.
Yeah, I'm going to share with you maybe some controversial takes that I have that we've learned that are very, very clear. You can look at the numbers, you can look at things anecdotally, what have you. But the reality of the situation is that the Web3 gaming audience in the last 3 years hasn't grown like hardly at all. It's a very small group of players, right? It's less than 100 million. Some estimates have it between 50 to 60 million players in total. And I use the word player lightly because I don't think a lot of those people are actually players. I think they're people interested in GameFi. You look at Web2 gaming and it's grown massively. It's nearly half the planet is now gamers. Like that's where the growth needs to come from. And those players want to play games and they don't care about a profit. But this group cares solely about a profit. Hence the previous commenter said, we're going to live and die with the crypto, crypto winner versus, the bull run. Like that's a money-making mentality. And you can stay in that mentality and that's fine. And there's certainly money to be made in cycles there if that is what your approach wants to be. And it's clear to me that there are two very separate audiences from a gaming standpoint. The ones that want to make money and the ones that want to play games and spend their money and have no expectation of return. In fact, I got into an interesting conversation the other day with one of my players that said, nobody will ever play your game ever unless they can make a profit. And I said, well, about 3.5 billion people last year spent $210 billion and they didn't own a single thing that they bought. And they didn't actually buy it. They just licensed it. So don't tell me nobody's going to spend money in a game unless they can make a profit, because that's just flat out not true. It's not even close to being true. In fact, it's really destructive thinking. I think the other thing that we learned is that people are in this community or in this world live inside of their own echo chambers, right? It's like, oh, we're all going to make it or we're not going to make it, right? It's like when Lambo or when not Lambo. Like there's this real kind of whipsaw, like we're all in this together mentality, and we listen to and talk to one another. We don't really reach out or look beyond kind of the silos of the worlds that we live in and the communities that we traverse. I think for Web3 gaming to really get mass adoption, which is what it needs to succeed. If you look at Axie Infinity was great as long as they continue to feed people into the bottom of the pyramid, that they could buy assets from the people right above them, and there could be this whole hand-me-down kind of motion that all worked. But as soon as they stopped filling that bottom of that pyramid, everything collapsed on top of itself. And that's going to play out time and time again. I think a lot of the problems, as I talked about in my initial comments, that developers in the Web3 space have is they don't understand how to build products that allow them to continually fund and build out their roadmap over time, right? They rely on the initial ICO or the initial NFT sales or ongoing pack sales. And it's kind of, again, it's a death spiral. It's a path to nowhere. There has to be an understanding between the player that wants to own and sell stuff and potentially make money, or at least get cents on the dollar for what they've spent. And the developers need to be profitable. If the developer is not profitable and they can't build out their content for a long period of time, and there's not a smoothness of the curve, in other words, you don't front load the development with a big sale that you hope carries you through the number of years. Like you have to figure out how to do these things where there's a balance between what the players can sell and what the developers can sell. Like until you strike that balance, these developers are all going to go out of business because they don't know how to build, balanced economies. They don't know how to strike an equilibrium. They don't understand utility. They don't understand scarcity. They don't understand any of these things. And unless they can run a successful business, every developer is going to rug or they're going to leave. And then the players are like, oh, I can't believe it. I got taken advantage of. Like, no, the developer didn't understand how to create a world where they could operate and build to their livelihood versus where you should be able to sell the things that you've bought. Like that's a real healthy tension. And by the way, that's super hard to solve, right? But we're working on it. We're looking at it. It's something we're very conscious of. I think the last thing that is really important that nobody wants to talk about here too is that, NFTs and wallets and whatnot it's loaded with friction, first of all, because we live in this completely fragmented world. But how you get in and how you play and what you do, like it will never be adopted by the masses because, it's like, well, what chain are you on and what wallet do you use and what is the NFT standard and what marketplaces can it be bought on? And is there a bridge? Like right away, people are like, I don't want to spend any time learning any of this. I want to show up. I want to play something. I want to be able to create an account and I want to just have fun. And if I own stuff and I can sell stuff, great. I want to do that too. But don't hit me with all this friction up front. So I think that the NFT Web3 gaming space, and again, I don't ever look at the crypto cycles. I don't really care about the altcoin cycle. I don't care about any of that stuff. What I care about is scarcity and utility. Like that's what matters. Like if you look at World of Warcraft as an example, gold farming was a massive, massive financial endeavor for those groups that did gold farming because the players needed it. There was a scarcity in the game. They didn't want to spend their time running all these daily quests to grind out all this silver when they could just, for a couple of bucks, like here was the value proposition for a player. You'd get a prompt in game that says, hey, want to buy 3 million coins? I'm like, yeah, because to get 3 million coins, I've had to spend 3 hours doing these quests. And I can spend 3 hours a day doing these 25 dailies and I get my 3 million coins, or I could give somebody $2 who's already done it for me. Like my time, my 3 hours of my day is worth more than the $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 that I spent to get that. Like that is a very positive player experience. The currency farmer sold the currency that they farmed, good for them. The player who wants to play spent the money because their time was more valuable. Like none of those tensions, none of those models currently live in any of the games that we're building. And, you know, and to put a finer point on all this, I think Web3 gaming needs a publicist or needs a PR agency to kind of rebrand everything. Like you shouldn't call them NFTs. You shouldn't call them wallets. You should call them assets. You should call them game accounts. That's like one of the things that blockchain brawlers did. We removed blockchain and we brought these players in through the Epic Games Store, through an Amazon Prime Gaming promotion. And we said, create an account. Like it was very simple language. Create an account. Now, what we did is we actually created a cloud wallet account. But the player didn't know that because they didn't need to know that because we weren't asking them to import and export and, you know, and mint these things. We just said, come in and try our game out. And you have a wallet, you don't know it yet, but the language matters, right? And if you want to get mass adoption, which we all benefit from mass adoption, let's be clear. Without mass adoption, it's going to be the same 50 million people fighting across the same 8 blockchains, across the same, 17 different wallets, and and it's going to be a fragmented mess. Like you need to do things that remove friction, increase onboarding, but more importantly, have utility and scarcity and value of the things that players are doing. Like they've got only so much time in their day to spend. Don't waste their time. And things that waste people's time, they're going to stop doing. I promise you that. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's something that we're very passionate about, trying to make sure we get as many people into the world, because I do believe in blockchain. I believe in the power of NFTs. I believe in power of fungible tokens. Like all these things are very, very good if positioned correctly and if done for the greater good of the developer as well as just the player. And that's what we're trying to solve, is what is the tension between the two.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will definitely expand upon that in my next question. I think that what is the path to mass adoption, and what are some of the tools that we may be lacking is definitely something that I want to get your take on. Before I do, though, I do want to also get Waginston's take on this previous question. Do you feel like we have learned what we needed to learn as Web3 gaming from this previous cycle? And do you feel now that Web3 gaming is poised or is prepared to take a bigger part of the main stage when it comes to the narrative that will dominate the upcoming cycle?
Well, it depends on who you mean by we, I suppose. The average blockchain folks, I'm not sure if all the consumers have learned everything they need to learn. Meme coins are still roaring and popular, and like I don't see investor strategies from the public changing or their methods of research changing. But we've definitely weeded out professionals who weren't behaving professionally. And that's a good, sometimes there's no pain, no gain in that regard. Like, when like a lot of hedge funds became insolvent, it forces people to be more when they see like, wow, that can happen to me, forces them to be a bit more responsible. I mean, even our hedge fund had some scares, like regardless of what I decide as the manager, investors can issue deposits and withdrawals anytime they choose. We had one guy demand a withdrawal who owns like 40% of our hedge fund. And I'm sure a lot of hedge funds would have just collapsed if someone tried to withdraw 40% immediately. I'm sure a lot of banks would collapse if someone tried to withdraw 40% immediately, frankly. And this taught me to be more responsible and careful with how we handle finances. So I don't want us to come close to any kind of danger again. And I think we've done a good job of that, honestly. We've learned, uh, especially to be good judges of people, like who's approaching us with investment ideas. We've seen what kinds of people seem to succeed over time from, having many people in our accelerator program for games and watching some fail and some succeed. You get a sense of why that is. In our accelerator program, the leader's definitely been Rising Star, the Hive music game. And I'd say one thing that he's really like learned and taken away from the last few years that's caused him to be successful is his views on token economics, and how we deal with these people who are only playing for money. And it, it's funny because a lot of players in at least in Rising Star, because it does have a dedicated core of very fans who love the game, but it also has a legion of people who are just there for money and they do not like each other. They because uh, the people who are playing for fun will like be like, well, why are you just dumping coins all the time and complaining about it? Like, why do you even like this game? Jesus. And it's so, but we've come up with ways of dealing with the situation. The way I've explained it, to try to quell arguments between these crowds is the people who play to earn are kind of like they're kind of like the hyenas from the Lion King, in that left to their own devices, they will go ravenous, they will consume, and they will destroy the thing they love. But they still have a place in the ecosystem, in the circle of life of blockchain gaming. And you can't completely get rid of them without destroying part of what makes it viral. And so, Rich's answer to that was to create a dual token system where there's Star Bits and Star Pro, right? And you can burn Star Bits to get Star Pro, but you can't earn them directly. And so I, as the hedge fund manager, invested way, way more heavily in Star Pro because there's only a finite amount made per unit of time, a maximum amount, and therefore it's less prone to inflation. And the players will get into an interesting, I guess, dilemma where if you dump too many star bits that you've earned too quickly, you'll see diminishing returns, right? And the investors, the people who like put money and resources into the game because they believed in it, won't be as negatively impacted by the behavior of those play to earn people who are just like coming to consume at all costs. They have to be controlled and channeled properly, or it can be dangerous for the game environment. And I think it's been working well. I've been working on another project, but I'm not ready to share too much, that tries to expand on this kind of dual token model. And yeah, in general, I think it's a positive step. And as games improve, I'm hoping, like I mentioned, higher quality games are in the works and not yet released. I'm hoping we'll get more people playing for fun and less people playing only for money, and this will further improve this situation. Is my hope. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. And I can definitely segue into our next question from that as well. We're talking a lot about mass adoption in crypto via Web3 gaming. And I think that for everyone who is within this space, we see the potential of how disruptive it can be for the status quo within the gaming space and how beneficial it could be as well for users in terms of ownership. And my question is, do you feel like Web 2 and Web 3 are fated to merge, let's say, or that they will have to clash it out until one can arise victorious? We know that there's a lot of resistance, that there's a lot of stigma. And yeah, do you feel like the path towards that mass adoption is a merge like a Web 2.5 solution, like Michael has mentioned, or that it is an outright either one will survive or the other will? There isn't a middle ground where they can both coexist. And I guess we can go on to Michael for his answer.
Yeah, look, right now it's no contest, right? It's not even close. The amount of players, the amount of revenue generated by Web 2, like dwarfs what Web 3 is all about. And that's going to continue to be the case for, I think, quite a while, at least kind of 3 or 4 years. I think even so, like I look at Shrapnel, I look at, what my friend Mark Long at Neon is building. It's going to be an incredible, extraction-based game. They're going to rely a lot on UGC. He's a very smart guy. That is a game worth paying attention to. But even still, I think their economy has challenges. But the more smart people we get building things the right way for the right reasons, with more of a balance between developer and player in mind, it's going to help. What needs to happen is what happened back in 2010 with free-to-play gaming, 2010, 11, and 12, right? Like, I was at the forefront of free-to-play gaming, and I saw the value in the model because I thought it lowered, obviously, the acquisition costs, right? Players could come in and play things for free, and maybe you get them to monetize. And 1%, 1.25%, if you get them to monetize enough in terms of the ARPDAU, your game could be really, really profitable. But yet not everybody had to pay you, right? So it was the opposite of retail. That was a movement that was not embraced by Web 2 companies, the same way that they're not embracing Web 3. So it took Zynga, it took Supercell, it took King.com, it took Scopely, it took really, really, kind of big companies today, very small and very humble in their beginnings, to build out a North Star that said, look, EA, look, Activision, look, everybody else, this is how free-to-play gaming works. And that North Star and leading the way was super important, because none of those companies would take that jump until somebody else gave them the answer. And why is that? Because these companies fear change. Like, a business model transition is an extinction event for companies. I said to a gal I know who runs The Sims, I said to her 2 years ago, I said, The Sims is so purpose-built for NFT gaming. Like, think about the animations, think about the characters, think about the set pieces of your world. Like, these should all be NFTs. They should be rare, they should be scarce, they should be tradable, they should have utility. Like, and players should be allowed to trade them between one another. And she said to me, and I quote, I don't risk my job by transitioning to NFT gaming. I know how to get another 10% revenue out of my players every single year. And that allows me to keep my job, which I love. Like, fear keeps people on the sidelines. Fear of change is the number one motivator, or fear of loss, is the number one motivator we have in our lives. I don't want to lose my life, so I eat healthy. I don't lose my wife or girlfriend or significant other, so I behave this way. Like, fear of loss is the number one motivator. And nobody in these cushy jobs at these big publishers are going to change the way they think until somebody else shows them that this is safe. I'll give you one last point to kind of illustrate this. So if you look at Simpsons Tapped Out, if you remember that game, Simpsons Tapped Out was built by 9 people. It did $1 million a day at EA as a third party, like just affiliated label deal. Like, EA didn't even develop that themselves. Some group said, hey, we got the Simpsons license and we'd like to build this game. And what do you think? And EA is like, whatever. It was part of their partners program. Meanwhile, the Sims social team had 200 people on it, and they built the game, and they spent $100+ million building it for Facebook, and it was a massive failure. They shut down the service within 6 months. So you can be really smart and you can do this really well, and somebody's going to come along and give you the answer to the test, and then after that happens, everything's going to change. So to me, to answer your question, is, I don't think these things will ever clash. I think what's going to happen is hopefully somebody in this room is going to say, look, world, this is what the model is for Web3 gaming. It is player asset ownership. It is giving them full utility and full dominion over their assets. And yet the developer, this is where you make money, and see how these things can peacefully coexist. And once that happens, tied to a game that is objectively fun to play, because again, we don't talk about this enough. I know a couple of folks here have mentioned it. Like, the game has to be fun. Like, it has to be a better use of your time. Right now, gamers, they spend however much time a day playing things that they know are fun. And you have to give them a better use of that time. And until you can give them a better use of that time, and it's got to be fun, has to be at the core of that. And sure, there can be an economic component, but it's not the component. Until those things happen, these two movements are going to stay inextricably, they're going to be mutually exclusive to one another. Like, there's going to be no crossover. And that's my take.
All right, I want to chime in and say I love his answer, and I love his answer because I believe the entire philosophy that he just espoused, and I built a product that's here to deal with all of what he said exactly. So the two main things about what we're doing in Invenium is we built like a Swiss Army knife to allow any Web 2 application to add on Web 3 elements. And it's not this competitive version of you must be play to earn or you must be free to play. I think you need both. Free to play is this amazing tool to get new players. And that's something that's really hard for play to earn. And play to earn is a way to go monetize an entire ecosystem, community, all of the players' efforts. And that lacks in free to play. So when you merge these two, you have this like engine to drive growth, and you have an engine to monetize that growth. And so both of those things running simultaneously, I think, is magic. So in our games that we're building, you'll have free to play options so that, one of the things we can do, the free to play games are so freaking addictive because you're like getting dopamine hits every time that you're winning something. But if you do that in play to earn, you're gonna destroy the economy because all those things have value. Well, now you can actually give things away because they don't have economic value again. So you can get back to that dopamine cycle of this thing is fun and I'm earning things and it's awesome. So, we'll have this free to play side and we'll have this play to earn side where, if you choose to, you can opt in and you can play on the play to earn side. And I think that's going to be really powerful because, not everybody's going to want to do it, but now it increases your match liquidity. Now it increases, the number of people that it feels like are in the ecosystem so that whales and others are more comfortable interacting. And you can see that there's this entire pipeline of players that are coming in through the free to play side that may end up wanting those same limited scarce assets that you've been collecting. So it becomes exciting and enticing. And then for the gameplay side, where he's saying, hey, the games have to be fun. Couldn't agree more. So much of this shit is just like, hey, we're going to make a graphical layer for some DeFi app and call it a game. And it sucks. Or maybe they're going to build a Ponzi scheme and then call it a game, but it sucks. But Unity games don't suck. And Unreal Engine games typically don't suck. So by building this tool set that allows Unity games and Unreal Engine games to exist the way that everybody's used to them, and then additionally to be this new play to earn experience, that's how I think that we're going to get the next evolution of players. And it's coming from what the previous speaker was just sharing of his frustrations, the ventings, the problems, and all that crap that exists. I couldn't agree more, and I've spent the last 2 years trying to address it. I think we have a good plan with Invenium. But we're going to see if we make it out of this bear market, and we're going to see if people come and adopt the product and the tool, and they like that process of, build a Web 2 game, add on to it, not get rid of free to play, but add on to it the play to earn. And hopefully both the free to play and the play to earn people are excited about what that means.
Thank you for that, Aggroed. I like that you agree with me. So naturally, I think you're smart. That's a joke. That's a joke. One powerful thing that I think can't be dismissed is that we call it play to earn. I always just refer to it as play to own or play and own. I think ownership of assets is really important. Let me tell you why. If I have spent, let's just say I played a game, I've spent $1,000 in the game, I feel trapped by that. But if I have a fiat off ramp out where I even get 20 cents on the dollar, I'm more likely to monetize. And if I'm more likely to monetize, that means I'm more likely to download a product. The biggest challenge, bar none, that faces every free-to-play mobile developer today and a lot of console developers is this whole acquisition cost. And acquisition costs, ever since Apple changed the IDFA rules, 3 or 4 years ago, like acquisition costs are through the roof. And especially if you want like a male PvP gamer, you're spending $50 to $60 per install. And if your LTV is not above $50 to $60, you're not going to get a lot of those players. So once these Web2 companies realize that allowing players to own their stuff leads to cheaper installs and leads to higher monetization rates, like that there is a total game changer for them. They're like, oh, wow, I can lower acquisition costs and I can get more installs. And yet all I have to do is figure out what the divide is between the revenue I get and the revenue they get. Like that changes everything, like without question. And it's up to us, again, to build that North Star to show them how that divide between developer revenue and player revenue works.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your take. And finally, let's also get Waginston's opinion on this. Do you agree with both Michael and Aggroed that the Web3 gaming space is kind of inevitable, provided we have that North Star, as Michael just said, or that that there needs to be some sort of education or clash between these two spaces for them to be able to live peacefully in the future?
I agree with a lot of what was said. Ultimately, the technology underpinning Web3 gaming or decentralized games in general is really interesting and useful for games. But I see points of ideological friction between the blockchain industry and the game industry. Like, I don't think every game needs to be a blockchain game. I mean, for example, the big thing about blockchain is the resolution of disputes. We put on a blockchain data which people are likely to disagree about. For games, this will be like, who's got that sword? How's my clan doing? Who's higher on the leaderboard? But like, what if I'm playing Skyrim? What do I need a blockchain for in Skyrim? It's like, there's no server. It's just me in a solitary single player world. And you shouldn't try to force it to be any other way. Some games are more meant to be blockchainized than others, I believe. And in choosing where to go with this, I think it's important to focus on artistic integrity, I suppose. Like me personally, I love games. I used to read Game Informer magazine. I learned to read from my Sega Genesis. It's just part of my culture. And gamers can tell when a game is being made by someone who's not like that. There has to be a level of sincerity because ultimately, as a medium, as a multimedia, gaming is an art form. And when people kind of forget this concept of games as an art form, gamers revolt. They take offense. It hurts their sensibilities, and they don't like it. And if you look on IGN and like Game Informer and all these video game publications, they are often highly critical of us. And what I'm saying here, that this is the ultimate reason. We need to focus on artistic integrity. I talk sometimes about some concepts like the fourth wall. I think there's a guy in here with the username Fourth Wall. That's kind of funny to me. What a coincidence. But basically, it's about the suspension of disbelief, in which the the consumer of fictional content will temporarily immerse themselves in the fictional world and imagine it is real by suspending disbelief. And so long as the world is internally consistent and words and actions and everything happening within the game appear reasonable within the context of the game world, they can maintain suspension of disbelief. And that's where a lot of the enjoyment of art comes from. And so you can't just take any game and throw blockchain on it. And you certainly can't take a business model and throw a game on it. Players will absolutely revolt if you do that. And in fact, I've had blockchaingaming.com for years now. When I got it, it cost like $2,000. It'd obviously be a lot more these days. But all this time I haven't tried to make a blockchain game, and the reason is that I didn't have a legitimate artistic idea for a game that I thought blockchain technology was useful for. Recently I have, but I haven't bought all domain names for it yet, so I'm not telling you what it's called. But I think people are going to start seeing these ideas, and it has to happen quite naturally. You can't force it. And we need people to think of a game first, and then the business model comes afterwards if it fits the game, not the other way around. And I don't know, hopefully I didn't get too off your question, but those are my thoughts for now.
I think you nailed it. Sadly, though, I do see the clock, and I do see that we're coming on the hour. So I did want to give you all the opportunity to also share a little bit of what you've been working on and what's coming up for your projects. Instead, though, I will invite everyone who's on the audience to go and check out all of the booths. So from Invenium, it's together with Splinterlands, if I'm not forgotten. It's just behind us. From Tyranno Studios, you'll have the Brawlers booth as well, and make sure to also check out the Blockchain Gaming booth. Hopefully you are able to learn more about these projects and also talk to the creators if they're around. Please do throw your emojis in the air. Huge thank you to all of you again for taking the time to be here with us today and to answer all of these questions. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was also enlightening to everyone who was in the audience. Make sure to stick around, though. Don't go anywhere, because there's about to be a wax masterclass pretty much with a lot of your favorite creators and members of the wax community. So make sure to stick around. Again, from my end, I really want to thank the invitation from Waffles and Breakman, and to thank them for the amazing work they have done putting this together. I don't know if there's any last words from our panelists, Michael, Waginston, Aggroed.
I have
anything
a 5-second last word.
Nope.
Go
Nothing for me.
Just 5 seconds. We're doing a giveaway. Come to our booth, get a free NFT. Follow the instructions.
That's Blockchain Gaming booth?
Yep, there's a giveaway from a game in our blockchain gaming community.
There
if
you go.
You follow the instructions at our booth, you too can have a free game asset.
That's what's up. Hey, there's a number of booths that have giveaways, so you just gotta go over there and read and try to find them. Hey man, this was great. Thank you so much, Nuno, for covering. You did a fab job moderating that. A lot of interesting takes from industry leaders. It was a wonderful to have you guys here, and we really appreciate you guys coming and accepting and doing this.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Cheers.
Thank you.